welcome back to the United Stand. It's the 2 p.m. show, and I have got some news for you. Now, listen, unless you've been living under a rock or something, Jadon Sancho has officially gone back to Dortmund on loan from Manchester United. Now, there's actually a lot to go through. I'll be honest, like the quotes and there's some articles I want to go through. There's quite a bit. So what I really want you guys to do is to comment, put in some super chats. I really want to hear you guys' opinion on this whole thing because there's so much that I want to speak on, and there's so much going on about, you know, the left wing position, who do we have next, and you know, a lot about Sancho's overall Man United career. You know, the break that he took when he went to go and train, or his whole disputes with Ten Hag and whatnot. So let me know in the comments. I really want to have a conversation with you guys because I'm going to be reading it all out, and I really want to know what you guys think about this whole situation. So I really want to start out with a poll. So are you guys happy with Sancho going on loan? It's pretty much a yes or no question. Are you guys happy? Yes. Are you not happy? No. Because in my opinion, I'm actually okay with it. I'll be honest. I'm not too annoyed, only because I feel like Sancho going back to Dortmund was the best thing to happen for not only him, but for United in general. I feel like for him personally, the change of environment, the change in players, you know, the whole structure of Dortmund in general, the fan base, the pressure, I feel like that's really going to help him to get back to the old Sancho, I guess, the old Dortmund Sancho where he was putting up crazy numbers. And I also think for the club, not to say that Sancho was a negative player or whatnot, but I just feel like having a bit of what's the word, like animosity in the club between a player and a manager, it's going to have a bit of effect on the other players. And I feel like sometimes we forget as fans that when a player is having a dispute with a manager, it's not just a one-on-one thing. He's still at Carrington. He's still talking to other players. He's still got a personal relationship with a lot of other players. So this kind of energy in the club is going to have an overall effect on not just him and the manager, but the other players in the club as well. So for me, I think in general, my answer is yes. I think he should have gone back. But what I really want to start off with is there's a quote, and the official quote is, "I'm back." Now, I think that's really interesting in my opinion, because anyone who knows the history behind "I'm back," it's a Michael Jordan quote. Now, I'm not going to go into basketball too much because this is obviously a football conversation, but just a quick, brief history as to what that means for the people who don't know is Michael Jordan basically retired in like 1995, and he was at the peak of his career, by the way. He had just won 3 leagues in a row in basketball references, 3 leagues in a row, best player in the world, and he retired. Kind of similar to how Jadon Sancho has not been playing for a while. Now, he came back in, I think, 1995, halfway through the season. The same way how Sancho's coming back to Dortmund halfway through the season is the same way how Michael Jordan came back to Chicago Bulls halfway through the 1995 season. And when he came back, they didn't win. They didn't win that season because they just weren't challenging at that time. But he went on to win 3 years in a row. He won the league, the championship, 3 years in a row after he came back. Now, I don't know whose decision it was to do the whole "I'm back" reference, but if it was Dortmund's decision, I feel like that's them basically trying to say, look, when Sancho comes back, we're back. The team is back. We're planning to be successful. Whether or not if they win the league 3 years in a row, you know what? Well done. Because Dortmund winning the league 3 years in a row, Sancho coming back and winning it 3 years in a row is wild. It's crazy. So if they do come back and they do that, then fair enough. But I feel like that's what Dortmund are basically trying to say. Look, Sancho's back, we're back, the team's back. But also, if it was Sancho involved in the whole decision to make it an "I'm back" quote, I feel like that kind of is him referring to himself as Michael Jordan, slightly referring to himself as "I'm kind of like Michael Jordan," now, which is it's a tough statement to make because he arguably is one of the GOATs, or the GOAT of basketball. So for him to put himself and reference one of the GOATs of basketball, he's kind of putting himself in a similar conversation, which is interesting in my opinion. So let me see what the votes are saying. 84% of people have said yes, and 16% of people have said no, which it's clear. It's clear most people think yes. Sancho, they're happy that Sancho's gone. I'm going to read some of the chats. Someone said, Second time, Sancho says, play football with a smile. I'm going to go through all these quotes, by the way. What's actually happened with the club? Why are players unhappy? I mean, there's a whole load of things that have gone wrong at the club for me to speak on. Sancho, this is lay off the sauce. Fair enough. I think he should have been sold, not loaned. Interesting. Sancho is nowhere near Jordan. Quite obviously, nowhere near Jordan. Someone said I'm happy with Sancho. Interesting. So, the first thing I want to touch on is the quote, the official quote that Sancho's come out with. So he says, when I came back into the dressing room, I'm going to go through this line by line, just so you guys can really think about what he's saying. So when I came back into the dressing room today, it felt like coming home. Now, I think there's a few little, in my opinion, there's a few little digs here at Man United. He didn't blatantly outright, disrespect the club, but there's a few little things which he's saying, which I feel like you guys can probably agree that he is kind of taking sly digs at the club. He said, when I came back into the dressing room today, it felt like coming home. In other words, United isn't my home, because you can't leave your home and go to another home. You only have one home. That doesn't make sense. So in my opinion, he's pretty much saying United never really felt like home to him. He was at the club, he was doing a job. Being a footballer is a job anyway, but he felt like when he was at United, it was more like this is an opportunity for me to be at one of the biggest clubs in the world. But when he's back at Dortmund, that's home for him. That's where he feels comfortable. That's where he feels more relaxed. He also says, I know the club inside and out. I've always been very close with the fans here, and I've never lost contact with those in charge. Very, very interesting, especially that last bit. I've never lost contact with those in charge. Now, whoever those in charge, it might be referring to the managers, the owners, directors and whatnot. But I feel like the fact that, you don't say you've never lost contact with those in charge for another club if you don't think that other club is in your future plans. Because why would you still keep in contact with them? In my opinion, I think Sancho, when he came to United, it was supposed to be a long-term deal. It wasn't supposed to be you're here for 5 years and then hopefully you go back. I think it was supposed to be you're here for as long as, you're here to progress with the club. We're trying to be, back to be one of the best teams in the world, Premier League, Champions League, whatnot, and Sancho was supposed to be part of that. But for him to say, look, I've never lost contact with those in charge, means that there were still ongoing conversations. It might not have been a conversation as to, are you going to come back and at what time you're going to come back and whatnot, but just the fact that they keep in contact, I think that's really interesting. He also says, I can't wait to see my teammates again, go out onto the pitch, play football with a smile on my face, prepare goals, score goals, and help qualify for the Champions League. That's pretty much what we wanted from him. Qualify for the Champions League. Let's be honest, United are in a very difficult position this season. Qualifying for the Champions League is going to be a mission. Genuinely, that's what we need. We need someone to come in January right now to help us qualify for the Champions League. But instead, he's leaving us to go to Dortmund to help them qualify for the Champions League. I think that's really interesting. What do you say? I can't wait to go out to see my teammates again, go out on the pitch and play with a smile on my face. In other words, when he was at United, or the past however long it's been that he's not been playing, he's not really been happy at the club. It's just kind of obvious. You're not playing football. As a professional footballer, you kind of want to enjoy your football. You're out there to play. Yes, money is a big factor in football, and there are a lot of players who are obviously playing for a check. Most people would. But you also want to enjoy the game. You want to play so you can enjoy playing football. And that's a lot of these guys' passions. Let me see what the chat's saying. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Dortmund are currently in the Champions League. Yeah, they're currently in the Champions League, but the season's only halfway done, so you never know what could happen. Hope Dortmund get worse. Interesting. Gotta go, have a good show. Someone also says, we ain't qualifying for the Champions Leagues without Sancho and Weghorst and the fidget spinner. In other words, Antony. That's funny. Second time he says, play with a smile on the face. Yeah, I think it's quite obvious that he's not been happy at the club. I think even before the whole problems with Ten Hag, he was constantly having to fight for his position with Antony, which I would find very frustrating about a player. You've been brought in as a star signing. Sancho wasn't brought in as a role player. We had been wanting Sancho to come into the squad for at least a season or 2 seasons before he officially signed. I remember when he signed, I think it was during, there was like an international break, he was out with England and whatnot with the other guys from the club like Rashford and whatnot. And I think that's, for me, it was an ongoing process of Sancho coming to the club. Everyone was expecting him to come and you know, perform and do what he was doing at Dortmund. So I think the fact that he wasn't playing, it's a bit of I find it a bit of a struggle for someone like Sancho. You've come in, big price tag, you're already one of the biggest names in football, you're super young, there's a lot of potential, and you come in and you're fighting for a position with another player. Now, there's another thing I really want to touch on with the whole Antony and Sancho situation. I was thinking to someone about this recently. The way I look at signings is a bit different now, because I look at it from a business point of view. Now, as a football fan, we kind of get a bit caught over the fact of these like huge numbers. We look at a player that's 70 million and we kind of just brush it under the carpet. 70 million pounds is a lot of money. 80 million pounds is a lot of money. 90 million pounds is a lot of money. Imagine if you owned a business and you're the owner of the business and your CEO or the manager came up to you and said, there's a new machine that I've been seeing other clubs use. It's cost 90 million pounds. It's only one machine and it costs 90 million pounds. And I want to bring this into the company and it's going to help the company make more money. And you as an owner, you agree to it. 90 million pounds is a lot of money. Imagine that CEO brings that machine and it doesn't work. How frustrated would you be with that manager? How annoyed would you be, or how on edge? You wouldn't be able to sleep. You just spent 90 million pounds on a machine for your company and it's not working. Now, that's pretty much what's happening with Ten Hag. He's brought in Antony for, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was up 90 to 100 million pounds. As an owner, you've given your CEO, your manager, a huge amount of money to spend on a player, and that player isn't working. That player isn't bringing us more money. Ten Hag is going to be feeling he's going to be feeling on edge. He's going to be feeling anxious, and because of that, he's going to end up playing Antony a lot more because he needs that to work. He needs this 90 million pound machine to eventually work, because if he doesn't, the owner's going to be as an owner, you're going to be super frustrated. I've just given you the huge amount of money to spend on a player when we've already got someone like Sancho in that position and it's not working. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why the whole problem with Sancho and Antony kind of occurred, because Sancho clearly felt a bit frustrated with the fact that Antony was playing so much. And I think the reason why Antony was playing so much is because he has such a big price tag. There's a super chat here from Oki Red. He says he has serious issues with many clubs. He took off last year and left us high and dry this year. He could have played this year with our injuries. That's interesting. I think, yeah, he to say he could have played is a bit harsh, because I don't think it was really like I said, I don't think it's really his choice all the time as to whether he wanted to play or not. I think as a player, like I said, you want to play. You want to play every week. That's your passion. That's the most interesting thing. That's the best part of your life, to play football. But when you're in a serious rotation with a player who costs that much, who has to play, who is the manager signing, you're kind of going to be forced into rotation. Someone said, oh my gosh. Someone said, Daniel Kalia hosting. That's sick. Much love though. He's doing great. Thank you. But I don't look like Daniel Kalia. That's another name that's on my list now. Anyway, Sancho is going to score tons of goals in Dortmund. He will. I'm not going to read the rest of that. He said, somebody else said, I think we never needed Sancho, to be fair. That's actually interesting. Let me get a poll on that. Do you think Man United needed Sancho? I think one of the reasons why that's interesting for me is because there's been, I spoke about this before on the forum, there's been quite a few signings where they're like just superstar signings. It's like, let's bring in this player who has a big name. Sancho was a big name at the time, and he was, like I said, one of the futures of English football in general. I mean, he'd won the under-17s World Cup with England. He was in the England squad already. He was an exciting player. He's just come back from Dortmund back to the Premier League. It kind of felt like he was one of those marquee signings where we're bringing him in for his footballing ability, but also the fact that he is a star. And you know what the Glazers are like with their money. They want stars in the team. How many stars have United signed? We signed Pogba, a star. Ronaldo's Ronaldo, you know what I mean? Plenty of other players that we signed. The big name signings, look at Mount. I mean, I'm not going to say Mount was a star, but giving him the number 7 automatically makes him a big name because you've got that pressure in your back. Do you feel like United needed Sancho in that right wing position, or was an element of it because of how big his name was and whatnot? Whoever sticks up for someone says whoever sticks up for Sancho is delusional. Interesting. He was a Man City reject. It's a bit harsh to say. I mean, Man City reject. I think part of the reason why he did leave City was to get the game time. I don't think he was ever going to be in that City squad, in my opinion. The City squad at that time. In fact, can someone remind me in the chat what year did he leave City? Was it around 2016 or like 2017? Because I think around that time, Pep had just come into the club. And we know what Pep's like with his academy players already. How many academy players have Pep? How many academy players, around 2017, yes. So how many academy players has Pep put into the full team, into the first team as a starting player? Not a lot. I can only really think of Foden, Rico Lewis. How many other players has he really come from the academy? Man City have a good academy. They've got one of the best academies in England, to be fair, but not a lot of players really make it into the first team. And even with Foden, it took him a while before even now, to be fair, Foden's kind of still in rotation a little bit. So for Sancho, so a lot of people are saying Palmer. Palmer never really made it to the first team either, even though at the end of his City career, he was playing kind of well. He scored a few big goals. So for someone like Sancho, he's probably thinking, if I really want to get game time and if I really want to progress in my career, I'm going to have to leave. Even though City is a huge club, I'm going to have to leave. So I wouldn't say Man City reject. So let me see the votes on this. It's a bit more even. Actually, no, it's 1/3. 1/3 of the people are saying Man United needed Sancho. And then 66% are saying Manchester United didn't need Sancho. Let me know why, though, in the comments you think this. Oscar Bob, yeah, obviously he's a new one. Somebody else said, he didn't have any progressive stats. He slowed the game down for us, and we didn't dominate possession that much. Somebody else is saying, how is it we're playing worse football than we did under Oli and Jose? And yeah, people still back Ten Hag. Interesting. Well, someone says we signed Elise. If we signed Elise, it means Antony is a failed signing. We'll get into a bit of the right-wing talk later. I want to really go into some of these quotes. So, the Dortmund sporting director, Sebastian Kehl, says, Jadon is an absolute difference maker, and I'm looking forward to seeing him back in black and yellow soon. He knows this city, our fans, and our club. Even though he hasn't played any competitive games in the past few months, we are sure that he will quickly settle back in with us, get us into top form, and use his qualities to help us achieve our goals for the season. Now, I feel like Dortmund are actually the biggest winners in this. I feel like they've been waiting, or when the whole Sancho situation kind of started with Ten Hag, I feel like this was their opportunity. They kind of looked forward to bringing Sancho back because he was one of their top players at the time when he was there. I think him, Jude, and Haaland, and obviously you had players like Royce in the team and Hakimi. I think Hakimi was there at the time as well. But Sancho was genuinely one of their shining lights. And I think the fact that he left Dortmund, I wouldn't say it took a big hit, but they lost quite a few big players. They lost Haaland, obviously. They lost Jude. They lost Hakimi, and they lost Sancho. So I think that the fact that they lost all those big players kind of took a little bit of a hit on Dortmund's progression. So for them to get Sancho back, I mean, you could tell by the quote here, they are super excited. And I feel like this is something that they probably want to continue. I don't think this is just a 6-month signing or whatnot until summer. This is something that I feel like it's a long-term signing. They're going to want to sign him on in the summer. So Dortmund are contributing 3.5 million and up to 4 million in add-ons subject to appearances and success for Sancho's loan deal. There's also some quotes from Laurie Whitwell. If you don't know who that is, he's a journalist for The Athletic, well-known journalist. I'm sure a lot of you know who that is. So he said that Ragnick felt Sancho was one of the players most responsive to his methods in training and talked up his talent in his notoriously frank media appearances. Now, I just want to stop there for a sec. So Sancho was one of the players most responsive to his methods in training. Now, for anyone who knows the whole problem that occurred with Sancho and Ten Hag, it was based off training. Ten Hag didn't feel like Sancho was training hard or he was training well, and that's kind of why he spoke up in that interview and said the reason why Sancho wasn't in the team was because of those things. And then obviously Sancho came back out and kind of disagreed. But the fact that Ragnick, who I mean, if you remember, Ragnick was super brutal not super brutal, but he was very, very brutal in his press conferences. He never used to hold back. He would speak the truth, which is one thing that I kind of liked about him. He wasn't scared to say anything. I think he knew that this wasn't a permanent job. So in his head, he was thinking, I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to say what the honest truth is. And the fact that he's saying that Sancho was actually one of the most responsive to his methods in training, it's a bit of a juxtaposition, because if he's saying that just before Ten Hag's come in, unless we're going to say Sancho just out of nowhere just decided I'm not going to try on a Ten Hag, then that kind of goes to say maybe Ten Hag wasn't right in saying that Sancho wasn't performing well in training. I mean, everyone's got their own thought process as to who's telling the truth. Is it Sancho? Is it Ten Hag? But the fact that Ragnick is saying this kind of makes me sway a bit to Sancho to say maybe he was actually trying hard in training. Maybe Ten Hag is in the wrong to say that he wasn't trying or he wasn't actually performing. Now it also says, yet he also saw a need to publicly challenge him to replicate his consistent Carrington displays on the pitch during games. In other words, what he was doing well in Carrington, what he was doing well in training, he wasn't doing it in the game. Now I think in general, Sancho never really hit the heights that we thought he was going to hit. I don't even think he hit the level that he was playing at Dortmund. He had so much more to achieve. He still has so much more to achieve, but what he was doing at Dortmund, I never thought, there was very few games where I thought Sancho was playing at that standard for Man United. A lot of times he used to go missing in games, or his decision making in the final third was I think, was poor at times. You know, times where he probably should try and beat a winger, he's not trying to beat him, trying to cut in. Times where he probably should take a shot, he's trying to find the pass. Times where he's making the pass, he should have tried to shot. I think his decision making, his whole final third output to me wasn't great, and I think that kind of reflects on what Sancho say in what Ragnick's saying here, that his constant Carrington displays, so how well that he's playing in training, was never really replicated during the games. Now another quote goes to say from Laurie Whitwell. During a media briefing at that warm weather camp in Spain, Ten Hag referenced Sancho's need to work on a combination of physical and also mental issues, a revelation which did not sit well with some at Old Trafford. Ten Hag did not have permission from the player or his representatives to discuss that matter. I think that's actually super interesting, to be fair, because one thing that I was actually thinking this yesterday, one thing that I feel like is super, I feel like it's a bit frustrating for players, is we forget that this is a job for a lot of football players. Like imagine, there's a lot of people watching this, you have a job, I'm assuming anyway. You've got your own jobs. Now imagine if you weren't happy at your job. You know, you might go into work every day and it's like, it might just be like a normal office job or whatnot. It might just not be something that you enjoy doing, or you might just not be enjoying your job sometimes. You might be going through something in your own personal life and it affects the way you work. Now imagine if your manager came out on Twitter and was like, yeah, this guy or this girl who's working, his mental issues at work are not up to scratch and he's not doing this in front of the whole world. You're probably thinking, why are you speaking about something that's personal to me in front of the whole world? And as football fans, we kind of take advantage of that. We just want to know everything that's going on with these players. Whereas as a football player, there's some things that you kind of want to be kept at work. This is a job for them, it's work. We shouldn't really be discussing his mental problems, not problems, let me not say problems, but it does say here his mental issues, physical issues, personal problems that are going on. We shouldn't be discussing these things because they're not any of our business. But for a football player, they get spoken about in public. And especially if it's your manager who's doing it, you're going to feel a bit of animosity between you and them, because why are you speaking on certain topics that you might not want to speak, that you might not want the public to know about? Let me go back to the chat and see what some people are saying. Someone's saying lots of people are in the room when Ten Hag and Sancho disagreed, apparently. Yeah, I agree. I think that I'm going to touch on this in a sec anyway, but one of the problems which I thought, I spoke about this at the start of the show, one of the problems which I thought affected the club affected the other players' performances was Sancho and Ten Hag's disagreement, because Sancho has a personal relationship with a lot of players. They're friends. We've seen Sancho go on holiday with Rashford, and we've seen how Bruno speaks about Sancho. These guys are friends. They're not just colleagues. They speak outside of work. So having these disagreements and all this tension, it's going to have an effect on the players. It's going to have an effect in general on the overall club. Someone said Ten Hag is a bully. Interesting. Someone also says, name a better player on the right than Sancho today at Manchester United. Interesting, I don't know. We needed him, but not because he's played well, but because we had moments. He could have started on the right wing and proven his place. Yeah, I mean, Antony's not really performing. Pellistri is, I mean, that's a whole other conversation about Pellistri, but he's not really an established player on the right. He's not someone that we can necessarily, in my opinion, he's not someone that we can necessarily trust to say, Pellistri, play on the right wing, he's going to do his job every single week. Not really, and Ahmad was obviously on loan. So yeah, there was a position there for Sancho to kind of prove himself. Someone said, some players don't suit the Prem. Pogba is an example. Interesting. Do you think Pogba didn't suit the Prem? I don't think Pogba's problem was, I mean, I'm not even speak about Pogba right now because there'll be a whole nother conversation, but I don't think Pogba, his problem was the fact that he didn't suit the Prem because he had seasons where he was playing pretty decent. I think it was just more of a personal thing. I think his concentration wasn't always there. Consistency wasn't always there. He had problems with Jose Mourinho. He had injuries, whatnot. I don't think it's a problem with the Prem. I think Sancho, in my opinion, if you don't suit the Prem, you're not a top player. Anyone who says they can't play in the Prem, you're not a top player for me because that's the best league in the world. You're playing against the best players in the world. You're playing with the best coaches in the world, the best tactics in the world. You're playing at the biggest stadiums in the world. You know, if you can't play on that level, you're not a top player. So you don't suit the Prem, that says more about you. Somebody else says, long live Antony, interesting. Someone says Sancho ruined himself. Cool. Well, Ollie got finals and second, interesting. Pain to United fans is Sancho smacks it and gets in the England team. You all got to back him then. Okay, let me do another poll here because I really want to know what people's opinion. Do you think Sancho is going to perform well at Dortmund? Do you think he's going to go back to what he was doing, or even eclipse that, even do better? Do you feel like Sancho is going to perform well or perform very, very good, very well at Dortmund? Or do you think he's going to replicate what he was doing at United? Someone said it's not the same Dortmund, which is exactly what I was saying before. When he was at Dortmund, he had Haaland to play with him. He had Jude Bellingham to play with him. He had Royce to play with him. He had a lot. They had a pretty decent team. They won a trophy. I mean, they won a trophy, so they were a very good team. I actually don't know a lot about Dortmund right now. I think they're second in the league. I'm not sure. I think they're second in the league or third. I'm not sure. What else are people saying? Someone said, at the time Sancho came, we had no real option on the right wing. I believe the reason that he was brought in was to give another winger option, but it's also time for him to go. So you feel like, who said this? Damien Levy. You feel like Sancho was he wasn't there to start pretty much. He wasn't there to take that position. He was pretty much just in my opinion, that's a role player. If you're coming into the team to be in rotation, you're a role player. Spending 70 million, 80 million on a role player is crazy. That's crazy. The fact that Sancho has had a tailored training routine drawn out for him tells me United have no plans to sell him regardless of whether Ten Hag leaves or stays in the summer. Let me just quickly vote on this. Will Sancho perform at Dortmund? Right now it's looking like yes. Somebody else says, why, that's actually interesting. Why did he pick Elanga instead of him? I don't think he picked Elanga. Elanga was still pretty young. I think there wasn't really a need for Elanga to leave unless he was going out on loan. I wouldn't say it was picked because you're not gonna. They're not even the same value, so it's not like you could sell Elanga and keep Sancho. You're not gonna get the same amount for him. Someone said Ten Hag is worse than Gary Neville. I don't think you can get worse than Gary Neville. Someone said it's Eric Bailly. I don't know why I keep reading out these chats that are comparing me to other players. I'm making it worse for myself. Someone said, sick of hearing about Sancho. He is a disgrace. Interesting. All he had to do was apologise to the manager, but instead he'd rather stay at home on his PlayStation and receive full play. Not full play, full pay. I've heard he's pretty good at FIFA. That's interesting. Anyway, someone said another Scott McTominay. No way. I mean, a lot of people know my opinion on McTominay. One of the worst players to come out of our academy. Genuinely don't know why he still plays for United. Ricky loves him for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, let me go on to the next quote, which says, let me go to the next quote. Okay, so Ten Hag felt his comments were supportive of the player, whilst Man United believed that to offer no reason for his absence would have fueled speculation. The manager reiterated that Sancho was not fit enough the following month, repeating that it's physical, but physical is also connectional. My bad, my English is terrible right now. It says, the manager reiterated that Sancho was not fit enough the following month, repeating that it's physical, but physical is also the connection with mental. Okay, that's an interesting quote. So Ten Hag thought his comments were supportive. I struggle to believe that. I mean, like I said before, if your manager's coming out and telling the world, that you're not playing well, you're not doing well at your club, how is that supportive? I think there's different ways to manage players. I've heard, who did I hear speak about this? It was an ex-United player. It might have been Rio or Evra. And they were speaking about Alex Ferguson and the way how he used to deal with different players. And some players, you can really be firm with them. You can pretty much just not say what you want, but you can be as brutal as you want with them because that's going to help them to get back. That's how they respond. They're not players that work off, I don't know, emotions. They're the kind of players that you have to just pretty much tell them, A, B, C, this is what you're doing wrong. This is exactly the problem that's going on right now, and this is how you need to improve. Whereas there's other players where they might be a bit more emotional, they might work more off confidence, but you have to be a bit more laid back with them. You have to kind of be a bit more sensitive with the way you speak to them. And that's how Alex Ferguson used to manage his players. I mean, I'm not trying to compare Alex Ferguson to Ten Hag. There's no conversation between those two, but I think elements of the way how Alex Ferguson used to deal with players, his man management, that's one of the best parts of Alex Ferguson, the way he used to deal with certain players, whether it's Roy Keane or whether it's Ronaldo or Rooney. He used to deal with them in different ways to get the best out of them. And I feel like for Ten Hag, his man management, so far, when he's run into problems, I don't think his man management's been the greatest. And for him to say that his comments were supportive, it kind of just shows that he doesn't really know the player, because you wouldn't do that if you knew that Sancho was going to respond like that. You wouldn't come out and publicly almost embarrass him by saying he's not playing well, or not training well, as a supportive mechanism if you knew that Sancho was the kind of player to find that offensive. So yeah, the poll has ended, and will Sancho perform well at Dortmund? 63% have said yes, 37% have said no. Let me know in the comments why you think yes and why you think no. So I'm going to read some more chats. In fact, I need to read some super chats. So Jabo Don 1 says, I agree with what Sancho said, but not what he did. What part of what he said is in the quote, the Dortmund quote, or the initial Ten Hag quote? Is there any more super chats that I've missed? Let me see. Sherlock Holmes says, if you're not professional, you can have all the talent in the world, but you're toxic to the dressing room. Yeah, I think, professionalism in football, it's kind of what I was saying before about having your own job. Everyone who has a normal working job, you know, where you have to go in with you might have to wear a suit to your job, you know, you're super professional, super formal. You don't go in there acting a certain kind of way, because the environment that you're in, you have to act, you know, to a certain standard. And I think professionalism in football is something that, to me, that's what separates players who have short careers and players who have long careers. The players who have had long careers, long, successful, consistent, you know, at a high level, people always speak about how professional they are, how someone like James Milner. James Milner's been playing football for probably longer than I've been alive. Maybe not, actually. But he has been playing football for over 20 years, which is crazy. And everybody who speaks about James Milner says the reason why is because he's one of the most professional players that they've ever met. Everything about him, just his you know, the fact that he's never late onto training, the way how he deals with, you know, media, and he never speaks out on certain things, and on the pitch, super professional. You never see him complaining on the pitch, and he doesn't wear his emotion on his sleeve, and things are going wrong. I mean, James Milner's never been a top player ever in his career. Never been a top player. Always been a role player. Always been someone who you can just put in at any position. But because of his professionalism, it's meant that he's had such a long career. Same as someone like Ronaldo, probably the most professional player ever. Huge, long career. And the fact that in my opinion, Sancho has shown elements of unprofessionalism. It's kind of why his career has been halted a little bit. I mean, if he wants to have a long career, a substantial career, a good career at a high level, he does need that element of professionalism into his, I'll say into his game, not necessarily his footballing game, but in just the way how he deals with certain things at the club. I feel like I've missed a super chat. I don't think I have missed a super chat, but let me just see what other people are saying. Someone says, the United drama and saga bores me. I wish it was all about football, like real clubs. That is so true. That is one thing that actually, it's kind of, not, I wouldn't say it makes me fall out of love with football, but when I was growing up anyway, not that anyone cares, but not that when I was growing up, and the things that kind of made me fall in love with football, that made me watch football every week, was purely based on what was going on the pitch. I used to that was my only focus. I only used to care about the football that was happening on the pitch, when we were winning, the players, the tactics, the trophies and whatnot. That's all I cared about. But nowadays, it just feels like every conversation is about things that don't have anything to do with football. It's about managers, it's about owners, it's about sporting directors. When did people care so much about sporting directors? I've never heard any other club speak so much about sporting directors other than United. It's like every conversation is about something that has nothing to do with actual football, which I completely agree with what you're saying. Somebody else says, let Sancho go wherever he's going, completely useless. Somebody else says, people tend to be a bit irresponsible. People tend to be a bit irresponsible when young can't. Okay, I'm not gonna read that. Someone said, I grew up and it was talk about on the pitch. All this social media and drama has nothing to do with football and it's not my cup of tea. Interesting, which I think is very true. Actions speak louder than words. I'm not reading that. So yeah, I'm gonna go back onto some of the other quotes from Laurie Whitwell. He says, at Man United, Sancho's response was viewed as a tantamount to accusing Ten Hag of lying. After a permitted leave of absence during that month's international break, player and manager met at Carrington to try and resolve the difference in opinion. Now, there's actually another quote here that says, so this is Sancho's actual quote. If any of you who actually don't know what Sancho said, or you can't remember what the quote was, I'm just going to read it quickly. Sancho said, please don't believe everything you read. I would not allow people saying things that is completely untrue. I have conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter and that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair. All I want to do is play football with a smile on my face, which he said that a few times to be fair, and contribute to my team. I respect all decisions that are made by the coaching staff. I play with fantastic players and grateful to do so, which I know every week is a challenge. I will continue to fight for this badge no matter what. Now, I want to go back into the quote earlier when he says about accusing a manager of lying. Now, that's a very harsh thing to say. Now, accusing someone of lying in general, a lot of people take that personally. I don't really take that personally because if I lied, I lied. If I didn't lie, I didn't lie. If you accuse me of lying and I didn't lie, I don't care because I know whether I lied or not. However, saying that in public, coming out in public and saying this person has lied on my name, being the manager of Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, accusing him of liar, him being your manager, that is a serious statement. I mean, that's a big statement. I don't think that's something that Ten Hag or the club in general were ever going to take lightly. This was never just going to blow over. Once you call someone a liar, someone who's in that high of a position, a super big club like Man United, it's always going to end well. I don't think that was never just going to be brushed over. That's never going to be something that's going to swept under the carpet, just a random little conversation behind closed doors, and that's it. He was always going to have to be, Sancho, what I'm talking about, he was always going to have to do something public to come back to kind of settle or kind of, I don't know what the word is, but put that one to bed, because you can't come out and say a manager is a liar and just expect people or the club to just let that one go. Someone says, yeah, professionalism is missing in a lot of players these days. Someone else says, don't even put Sancho in the same bracket as Pogba. Pogba was player of the tournament when we won the Europa. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people forget that there was a season where Pogba was our top goal scorer and top assister. I think that was in 2018, 2017, Mourinho time. So somebody also says, everyone is blaming Ten Hag for Sancho going downhill, but never played well before he arrived. Someone said Ten Hag is at fault. Really, Sancho was dropped by Pep, Oli, Ralph, Southgate, and we're still blaming. So let me read that again. Ten Hag is, oh, okay, so it's a question mark. Ten Hag at fault, question mark, basically saying, is that true or not? Really, Sancho was dropped by Pep, Oli, Ralph, Southgate, and we're still blaming Ten Hag. It's such a joke. Somebody else says, let Sancho go wherever he's going, completely useless. I've seen that one a few times. Somebody said, football has many drama these days. It feels like watching Love Island. That's true. I'd rather watch football than Love Island. They don't want to blame the manager because I'm not gonna say that. Because Mark got in their head, so now blame the staff. I don't think Mark's controlling that much of a narrative. What I was trying to convey, this is from the Damien Levy guy. He says, what I was trying to convey was that at the time in 2020/2021, we did not, I think you meant to put buy a right winger with the potential. We did not, I don't know what you're trying to say. He was not a good signing for that reason, but we overpaid. Interesting. Someone said Ten Hag is playing McTominay, it's so frustrating. I just had to read that. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but that is so true. Somebody else has said Ten Hag probably still believes he has hair on his head. I think that myth is completely gone. Someone says Sancho likes to cause chaos. The Sancho tweet is the equivalent of investigating yourself and finding yourself not guilty. Interesting. Anyway, so let me go on to some more quotes here. So again, this is from Laurie Whitwell. He said, Ten Hag showed Sancho videos. Actually, this quote's really interesting. Ten Hag showed Sancho videos of the final training session before that trip to Arsenal, a practice match between what would have been Man United starting XI and a shadow side, including Sancho, designed to imitate their North London opponents. The manager was unhappy with Sancho's application in the session, particularly with his pressing. Sancho disagreed, but following their meeting, further talks were held over how the matter should have been resolved. So they were already having problems. This wasn't like a first thing. I feel like the whole Sancho, his training energy, the way how he was playing in these practice matches, like I said, the way he was training behind closed doors, there was clearly some kind of disagreement between Sancho and Ten Hag already. I think it just came out a bit abruptly because nobody really knew what was going on. And the fact that it came out, everyone was kind of like a bit like, what's going on? Like, is this really true? But the fact that there was problems already, especially with this training session, speaking about how Sancho is pressing and whatnot wasn't there. It just goes to show that Sancho was already having problems with Ten Hag. Another quote goes to say that Man United wanted Sancho to delete the post and apologise to Ten Hag. That apology would then be publicly communicated. Sancho did delete the post, but pushed back over the other element of the proposal. The talks to reconcile the manager and the player ended without a resolution. So, I mean, this goes back to what I was saying about if you're going to call someone a liar, you're going to have to come out and publicly say something to kind of not even justify, but to resolve the problem. You can't just say something like that and then behind closed doors have a conversation and not come out and say, whether or not you apologise or not, you have to come out and say something about the situation. And I think the fact that Sancho only agreed to one side of it, just to delete the post, not like him deleting the post was going to make a difference. Everyone's already got the post saved. But the fact that he just deleted it and he didn't want to come out and actually apologise and say something, it kind of says a lot. I think he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't really want to delete the post. It was more a case of, I kind of have to, but I'm not going to say that I was lying though. I'm going to delete the post, but I'm not going to come out and apologise or say that I'm lying because I feel like he still kind of means what he wrote. Let me see what else is being said in this chat. People are talking about Love Island on here. That's not, this ain't a Love Island chat. Somebody says, finally now we know it wasn't because of training, he just didn't like Sancho. I mean, he's complaining about pressing like we go into a game and press from start to finish. But we need to press from start to finish. Every top team presses from start to finish. That's what makes a top player. I think if you're, especially attacking players, if you don't press, you have to be one of the best players in the world. To me, that's the only excuse I can give for someone not pressing. If you're Ronaldo, or if you're Haaland, or if you're, I don't know, Harry Kane or Mbappe, maybe I might excuse you not pressing because you're going to do something else on the pitch, which is going to be 10 times more than what anybody else can give. But if you're not doing that, you better press. You better run for 90 minutes. I don't want no excuses about energy or whatnot or fitness. You have to press for 90 minutes. That's the only, for me, that's the only way how you can show, even if you're in bad form, you can still show that you're trying. At least the fans are not going to get onto you if you're pressing for the full game. You can show a bit of effort. Someone said, glad he's gone. In Eric, we trust. Somebody also says, if he's complaining about pressing, did he pull Rashford to the side and give him the same talking to? Nope, because he has his favourites. I mean, I could talk about Rashford for a while, but I don't think we have that much time to talk about him. But that is we always talk about that on the forum about whether or not, I mean, I've heard Faz say before that he believes the fact that Rashford isn't pressing might be actually an instruction from the manager. Because we've seen managers in the past, not Ten Hag, but other managers in the past kind of give a few players, or one or not two, maybe like one player in the team, that leeway to not press as much as everybody else because you might want to conserve their energy going forward. I mean, we've seen Ronaldo used to do that at United. We used to see other players like Jadon Park, players like Rooney, Tevez, these players that were around Ronaldo, they used to have to put in mad work, crazy work. Anybody who used to watch football at that time would know exactly what I'm talking about. The players around Ronaldo would put in crazy amount of work, which kind of gave Ronaldo that ability to have a crazy amount of energy when it comes to attacking. I'm not trying to compare Rashford to Ronaldo, nowhere near the same level, but it just goes to show that maybe there was an instruction there from a manager to kind of give Rashford that leeway. I don't know, that's not my opinion, but there are people who have that opinion. There's another super chat here that says, that quote just reminded me of the clip of Sancho doing half-ass push-ups in training. Little effort in the small things is a sign. I mean, I don't remember the video, but I find it hard to look at little clips from training and stuff like that and actually believe that's what's going on in training. To me, like when a player's training and there's cameras around, they're not going to be serious. SK says, Sancho versus Ten Hag. The difference is Sancho's only concerned with himself. Example, he down tools when teams needed him. Ten Hag is concerned with the club. Someone said, the good old days. I mean, if we want to go back to the good old days, that's going to be enough. But I don't want to start, when I start referring to the past, I can get carried away because it's just a better time. It's just more interesting things, a better thing to talk about when we talk about back then. But let's just try and stay on the current. Somebody else saying Ten Hag needs to go. Someone said, how is what Ten Hag and Ralph said relevant? Big period of time between both of them training with him. Yeah, you can't say it's a big period of time because your training shouldn't be 100% regardless. There should be no differences in training with one manager and a different manager. Your training from when you're in the academy should be 100%. You should be showing that you're willing and you've got that hunger in you to be one of the best players in the world from academy days. There should never be a change in training because you're with a different manager or because you're in a different club. You should always have 100%. The best players, like I said before, professionalism. The best players, look at what other players have said about top players. They always refer to how well they train. Even if they're super talented, they will always say, look, this guy trains like there's no, like tomorrow's his last game. There should never be a difference between training between managers or clubs. Constantine says, Ten Hag's treatment of Ronaldo was enough for me. And Sherlock Holmes also says, your lineup against Spurs. This ain't about Spurs, but I'll give a quick lineup from against Spurs. Apparently, Onana's playing, which is a whole other conversation, 'cause I don't think he should be playing. He should be playing with his club. His club's in the biggest tournament that they're ever going to be in, the African Cup of Nations. It should be an honour to play for your club. To me, there should be no reason why a player should pick his club over his country. No England player would ever pick their club over playing for the country. So I don't know why Onana's playing for that Spurs game, but he is here. So I'll pick Onana. I know this is off topic, innit? But I just want to say this quickly. I'd pick Wan-Bissaka over Dalot. I know if Faz, you're watching this, I don't care. Wan-Bissaka. Who will be at left back? Who's even still here? Dalot can play at left back. If Luke Shaw's not playing, centre backs, we'll put. I heard Martinez is back in training, so he might even be back. But I'll say Varane, and if Martinez isn't there, I'll pick Johnny Evans because he isn't actually doing too bad. Mainu, DM, or Mainu, maybe not in DM, but if Casemiro's back, I'll put Casemiro in there next to him. If he's not, I'll put Mainu, Bruno, and who else is even in that midfield to even play? If Casemiro's back, I'll pick Casemiro. If not, Eriksen. I forgot Eriksen's even still there, if he's not injured. And then up top, Højlund. Apparently Martial's staying as well. That's another conversation I'm not going to go into, but I still put Højlund, probably Garnacho and Rashford. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I'm sure there's a time for that. Pre-match show on Sunday, we'll speak about that. This iPad's actually going to die, by the way, if anyone's watching. So I'm going to read some more chats. Someone says, the only thing I think Ten Hag shouldn't have done was out Sancho in the media. That was what started the whole rift. Yeah, I think like I said before, when you start speaking about players out in public, it's a job. And at the end of the day, like I said before, it's a job. You don't want your manager to speak about what's going on at work to the whole public. It is a bit embarrassing, and yeah, it's just not something that you want to do. Now, there's a quote here that I want to read from Laurie Whitwell as well. Leading up to the end of the show, I've been there for an hour. It's supposed to be a half-an-hour show, and I've been talking for ages. But the quote says, "There's a speculation at Carrington that Sancho's salary of more than £200,000, that's crazy, that's still crazy to think, per week has been reduced due to him not being part of the first team picture and the subsequent loss of image rights." I would be fuming if I was Sancho. Imagine if your wages, just take a second to imagine that. Your wages is being cut down by, I was under the impression that Sancho was earning over 300 grand anyway. So if his wage was cut down to below £200,000, imagine losing over £100,000 because you were in a picture. A club picture, and your wages is being taken. I get why he's annoyed now. I get it. I'd be so mad if a picture is the reason why I'm losing hundreds of thousands of pounds. It also says his contract allegedly has a clause which links that portion of his salary to being a member of the senior squad, although this is also disputed by the Sancho camp. In any case, that salary meant a permanent departure in this winter window was also unlikely. There's another super chat from Riker Nyberg that says, "To me, it seems like Ten Hag exhausted every option with Sancho before calling him out publicly. It was a last attempt to motivate the player." There should never be a last attempt. I said this before. You should know your players. You should know what works with your players. That's management. That's what makes you a good manager. There shouldn't be a last attempt. You should already know what to do. You should figure out what to do at least. We've learned now already that him calling him out was the complete wrong decision. So last attempt is wild to me. Like last attempt to motivate the player. If that was his thought process, that's very, very poor management. SK says you can look at it. He's on 200k for playing PS5. Listen, if you paid me £200,000 to play PS5, to play FIFA and Warzone, I'd quit everything I'm doing. You'd never see me on the show again. 200 grand, fair enough. Someone else says, how can you not train well and be the best player during the friendlies and then not used in the first games of the season? Interesting. Someone else says, both Sancho and Ten Hag need to sit down like grown men and hash this BS out in the summer, and we can all move on for the new season. I bet, you know what, yeah, that's actually interesting because these are not like, again, I try to look at it from a perspective outside of football. Because when we look at it from a fan's point of view, we forget that these are grown adults. Like they're grown, like they're not kids. Ten Hag's like 50 years old. Like he's a grown man. Sancho, yeah, he's young-ish, but he's still a grown, he's like 23, he's a grown man. He's the same age as me, if you didn't know that. But he's the same age, he's a grown man. So those two there should never be as two grown men, you're having arguments about who's lying. I would never have an argument with another grown man about if he's lying or not. Like that's just a conversation. You have a conversation and you hash it out. That's it. But as two grown men, that's wild to think. Constantine says, Man United are stuck. If they sack Ten Hag, who did they go for? That's exactly my point with the reason why I don't think United should sack Ten Hag. We're not getting Xabi Alonso. We're not getting, who else is there? Zidane. Is Zidane even? Yeah, we're not getting Zidane. We're not getting De Zerbi. Like, we're not gonna get anyone better. I'd rather have a manager than not have a manager. Like, what are we gonna do? Go and get Oli back so we can have a nice little honeymoon period again and win a few games and then it's back to the same old thing. Like, yeah, that's why I don't think Ten Hag should be sacked, because having a manager is better than having no manager. Someone says, Ten Hag is a child. He lies all the time. Somebody says they would choose Potter. Please, 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 please. Sir Jim, if you're watching this, please, please, please don't put Potter in any conversation. Please, please. If Potter is even in the conversation for coming to Man United, we have completely messed up with bringing in Ineos and Sir Jim. That shouldn't even be. I should be manager before Potter. Yeah, I don't know anything about being a manager, but I should be manager before Potter. Potter should not be manager for Man United. Someone said bring back Jose. Someone said bring back Southgate. Listen, Southgate, I mean, my England opinion is, I know this is a United show, but I don't think Southgate should be England manager anymore, especially if he doesn't win this World Cup, which is a strong thing to say, but yeah, I don't think he should. I think Southgate's days are numbered, very, very numbered. Somebody else says Xabi Alonso or Zidane. Someone said I'd rather have Harry Potter than Graham Potter, 100%. I'd rather have Harry Potter if he's available. If anybody knows Harry Potter personally, let me know, or let Ineos know. Hansi Flick is available. Someone said Sancho smiling with the yellow jersey. Sancho, don't forget, it is a Man United FA and fans that pay your monthly salary of $350k a week. I don't think he cares anymore. I think he's lost all care. I won't say respect, but I don't think he cares anymore about that kind of stuff. Someone said, stupid people saying Potter and Zidane. Get back to reality. Yeah, exactly. Get back to reality. We're not getting Zidane or Xabi Alonso. Why would Xabi Alonso leave a team that's doing well? He's got some serious players, top players at Leverkusen right now, to come to United. Just the biggest mess. Like, yes, it's a big club. Yes, he's going to earn more money, but it makes no sense. Someone said we've got the wrong bold Dutch manager from the beginning, because Arne Slot was/is clear, but that's another debate. What has nothing to do with Sancho's poor footballing behaviour. That is another debate. So someone said get Pep or Klopp. First of all, I don't want a manager that was manager for Man City or Liverpool. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you guys are okay with that. Not me. I don't want to live. To me, if Pep, I know that again. I've been drifting a lot for this conversation, but I always do that. If Pep was to become manager of United, or if Klopp was to become manager of United, I don't care how well they do or how well they say they're going to do. There's always going to be a bit of bias between whether or not, or between the fact that it's United compared to their rivals, Liverpool or City. To me, they're never going to put 100% in, because if they really loved their clubs, if Klopp really loved Liverpool, if Pep really loved City, they can never come to United and do a good job. Makes no sense. Super chat here. I'm going to wrap up in a minute. What would you have done when presented with the question, Ten Hag? When presented with the question, Ten Hag was when he called Sancho out publicly. Anything but the truth could have been worse, or would have been worse. No, he did. You don't have. the conversation between Ten Hag and Sancho, or the conversation about whether Sancho is performing well, has nothing to do with us as fans. It has nothing to do with us. All we care about is what goes on the pitch. Anything behind that that matters for the club and the players and the manager. That's their conversation to be had. We don't need to know as to whether each player is training well, as long as they play well on the pitch. So when he's asked about it, keep it formal. Let them know, look, that's between me and Sancho. We're going to work on this and to get Sancho back or to get Sancho training well. Ain't got nothing to do with you guys. So one more quote before I wrap up, which says, the consensus upon the Man United manager's appointment was that the squad he inherited from Solskjaer and Ragnick acquired, whipping into shape through strict rules. A more disciplinarian approach from the manager's office was at least partly credited with United exceeded expectations in Ten Hag's debut season, which saw them finish third to qualify for the Champions League and win the Carabao Cup, the club's first major trophy since 2017. Yeah, I think everyone agrees that Ten Hag 100% over exceeded expectations. No way did we think he was going to do that. Quick super chat here says from Sherlock Holmes, if United lose against Spurs, sack Ten Hag. Get someone, in brackets Ollie, as interim manager till the end of the season. Playing this poor should not be acceptable. Definitely don't get Ollie. There's a reason why he's still unemployed. Maybe he has enough money to last him for the rest of his life, but there's a reason why no one's trying to get him back. Getting Ollie would be one of the worst decisions. I'd take Potter over Ollie, and I'd take me over Potter. So that says more about Ollie, doesn't it? But yeah, well, my iPad's just died. So super chats, if there's any more super chats, I'm sorry, I can't read it no more. But this is the end of the show anyway. So let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'm going to go back and read it. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole Sancho deal going back to Dortmund. I think most people already have the consensus that it's best for Sancho, that he's probably going to perform better at Dortmund rather than him staying at United. I also don't think there's any return. The fact that he said, I'm back, kind of shows that he can't say, I'm back and go to Dortmund and then say, I'm back again and come back to United. That you can only do that once. Like, you can't do that twice. So I think he's probably not going to come back to the club, even if he plays well. Dortmund are really excited to have him anyway. So I think especially if they perform well, there's a reason for him to stay at Dortmund. And the fact that I feel like English players, quick little point before I wrap up, English players going overseas, for me, I think that's a good thing. I think we've not had enough English players play outside of England. Look at Jude at Spain in Real Madrid, one of the best players in the world right now. Harry Kane, one of the best players in the world right now. I think more English players, in my opinion, need to play outside of the Premier League. I think that would help England, the actual team, because there's a different environment. They can come back to the club with no biases from their other clubs. For example, if you're a United player and you go to England camp, you've got a United bias in general, just because you're rivals with all the other City players. So playing outside of England, you kind of, it takes that away. So I think more English players need to go out of the Premier League and just play for a completely different club, completely different country. So yeah, in general, I think it's a good thing. But yeah, let me know on Twitter or send me a DM or in the chat right now what your opinions are on Sancho and how you think this is going to affect Man United going forward. And we'll see you next time.